Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this edition of History in Highballs as part of the North Carolina Museum of History's History at Home initiative. We're so glad that you're joining us for this evening's program, History in Highballs, History of a Dairy and Bean to Bar Chocolate. My name is Stacy and I handle adult education here at the museum. So whenever you sign up to join us for one of these History in Highballs programs, you and I will virtually get to spend the evening together listening to some incredible stories about the places and people that make our state so special. Tonight's program is just one of many exciting digital offerings available through MOH. So if you'd like to learn more about our History at Home initiative, we invite you to head over to the museum's website at www.ncmuseumofhistory.org. We would like to take this opportunity to thank our North Carolina Museum of History Associates and Foundation for making tonight's program possible. Our associates and foundation provide crucial funding and support to the museum, which, in addition to many other things, helps make programming like this evening's event happen. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an associates member, please head over to their website at www.ncmoha.com. We would also like to take this opportunity to thank those of you who donated funds towards this evening's program. We do our best to keep our programs free to attend, but there are costs associated with keeping these series going, and we continue to just be so grateful for your generous support of the museum. A few quick housekeeping items for this evening. We ask that you please keep your mics muted throughout the entirety of the event, and to please type any questions that you have for our speaker into the chat function located at the bottom center of your screen. At the end of the program, I will ask the speaker as many of your questions as time allows. So it's my honor to introduce this evening's speaker, Sam Ratto, owner, operator of the Dairy Chocolate Factory. Sam has a long history of learning the bean to bar craft, and this evening will fill us in on how Videri started its journey in the bean to bar world of chocolatiers, how the company gives back to the community, and what's next for them. So Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure. This is fun. So I wanted to virtually say hi to everyone here. It's my honor and pleasure to be able to be here with all of you on a Thursday night. I forget what night it is. But I wanted to start off by saying that Videri Chocolate Factory wouldn't be here without the support of the community. We could make a great product and sell it to people, but if nobody wanted to buy it, we wouldn't be here. So I just am very grateful and thankful that our community has shown up time and time again over different holidays and different times, and especially during a pandemic where we've had to pivot and change almost everything we do and how we do it, while trying to stay safe and maintain social distance and all the fun things that we're all learning how to do. So I wanted to start out by giving a little bit of history about Videri Chocolate Factory, why we chose the Depot building to start our chocolate factory in, a little bit of history about the Depot building, located at 327 West Davie Street. So I'll start by saying that Videri opened its doors on December 15th of 2011. Myself and a few other people started Videri Chocolate Factory back then, and it was I would say it was a bold move to operate in a 4,000 square foot building with no pre-existing customers. We literally didn't sell a bar of Videri chocolate until December 15th. And then over the next week or two before Christmas, we sold about 3,000 bars to the point where myself and Star were standing at the counter, literally hand wrapping bars as people were coming in, and every once in a while somebody would say, "I'd like 10 of them." And we're like, "Are you sure you want 10 of them? Maybe two would be good today." And so from that point, we grew and we changed and we adjusted, and it was pretty wild, just to say the least. But a little bit about the Depot building. It was completed in 1912 by the Southern Freight and Railway Company. There's a plaque on the front of our building after it got remodeled and reimagined as this may sound weird, as 3 nightclubs in one building in 2006 let's say, I don't know what year. We got the building in 2011, and we started to learn the history of the building. It used to be a working railway freight depot up until the mid 50s, almost the mid 60s. And then from that time until the late 90s, early 2000s, it was inhabited and operated as a insulation and maybe roofing company. One day we were working in the building, and two customers came in. It was a mom and her daughter. The daughter was probably in her 50s or 60s, and the mom was in her 70s or 80s. And the woman was walking around, and she goes, I'm sorry, what did this building used to be? And, I go through this whole routine of, it used to be this and that. She goes, I think my office used to be upstairs. And we kind of looked and went, wow. So this used to be a second story. And we started getting the history of that building. And it was pretty fascinating to hear somebody tell us, walk into the building and say, I think my office used to be upstairs. And it was one of those first moments of talking to somebody about the building and them giving us their perspective and their history in that building. And over the past we just celebrated our 9-year anniversary, but in about the 10 years we've been in the building, we've had dozens of people come up to us and say, different stories about the history or different places or different people or different businesses. And it's been a pretty wild ride just to kind of see that. And it's been really neat. And we always get a new little tidbit of history or something like that. And anytime we've done an expansion or a little construction project or something like that, we find a new little piece of history. Maybe it's a big, old railway tie or a big nail or, maybe a piece of lumber that looks like it has about 600 rings on it. So it's a really neat old building, and it's been really fun to inhabit it. And with that comes some issues and some fun things that you have to deal with about the building. We call it breathing. It has old bricks, and that temperature and humidity comes right through the bricks and leaves right through the bricks. In the summertime, it's hard for us to keep it below 75, and in the wintertime, it's hard to keep it above 65. And it's like anything that's old that's got character. We always enjoy trying to figure it out, and it's been really fascinating. So I'll kind of move on into a pretty basic primer of the history of U.S. bean to bar chocolate makers, starting with Scharfenberger Chocolate in 1999. John Scharfenberger and his business partners who helped reinvigorate the sparkling wine industry in California. They got into bean to bar chocolate making, and in the Oakland area of California, they started Scharfenberger Chocolate, and that kicked the bean to bar revolution off in America. For about 5 or 6 years, they were the only bean to bar chocolate maker in America doing the style of bean to bar chocolate making that was normally reserved for European chocolate makers, where they were getting fine flavor cocoa beans from around the world, sorting them, roasting them, winnowing them, grinding them, and using traditional machinery to do it. Scharfenberger sold to Hershey in 2008 or 9 or somewhere around that era, and you can still find chocolate on store shelves. It's now made by the Hershey company, so they don't utilize any of the traditional machinery. And to be honest, it doesn't taste the same, but that's what it is. Oh, and I see that somebody used to visit them. Yeah, and their products used to be in the market. Yeah, it was great. So from that first chocolate maker, about 7 or 8 other chocolate makers came into being. There's a company called Patrick, the Mass Brothers, Askinosie, Rogue Chocolatier, and Taza, and then Escazú started their bean to bar journey around 2009. So in 2009, when I started working at Escazú, there was maybe 11 bean to bar makers in America using traditional machinery, trying to make chocolate in a European style with either just 2 ingredients, which is cocoa nibs and sugar, or maybe making a milk chocolate. But it was very minimal. The industry was very small, And by the time that Videri started in 2011, there was maybe 15 or 20 bean to bar makers. And it was a very small community. And even to this day, most of those original chocolate makers, we're all still pretty good friends, and we see each other at chocolate events or even at Source. And it's been really interesting to watch us all kind of go divergent paths, but stay true to making bean to bar chocolate. With the exception of maybe one of those companies, they're all still in business, and they all still do a robust business, with the focus being on cocoa producers and farmers and communities, and buying high quality beans for a premium. And so that's kind of the central point of all of our missions, is that we're trying to make bean to bar chocolate while using delicious old world or heirloom varieties of cacao. And it's a pretty wonderful pursuit that a lot of us have really put our hearts into, and tried to keep the education going on it. So that's kind of I would say, the beginning of the American bean to bar revolution, as people call it. Now in America, there's probably closer to 200 bean to bar makers of different sizes and styles. Most bean to bar chocolate makers in America are still trying to make a European style, or an old world Mesoamerican style, where it's utilizing stone burr grinders, and maybe making it in more of a grittier style, like Taza or something like that, where you're using that chocolate in baking or cooking for moles or things of that nature. But across the world, I think we're closer to 1,500 or 2,000 bean to bar makers. And because of that, and the amount of chocolate makers that need high quality beans, a lot of the heirloom varieties that were going out of fashion or weren't being produced at a high quality, because mass market chocolate companies didn't want to pay the premiums for this quality of bean. A lot of these sources have been propped back up, or have started to repropagate around those original areas. Guatemala is a good example of that. Mexico is a good example of that. The Dominican Republic has seen exponential growth over the past 10 years. And it's a really wonderful thing to see more communities continuing a tradition, but also getting recognition from companies like ourselves that are buying beans at a premium. And when I say a premium, the best way to put it is the lowest price we buy a ton of beans right now is $5,500. On the global like commodities market, mass market chocolate producers are buying tons of beans for about $2,500. And inside of, let's say, scale, or somebody's ability to buy cocoa beans for a cheaper price, it's still about double what we're paying for beans that we're getting. The farmers that we're buying cocoa beans from, and the communities and co-ops and fermenteries that we're partnering with and supporting, are going from getting about 25 cents a pound of wet beans to almost 75 cents for a pound of wet beans. So the direct money to farmers, families, and co-ops and fermenteries is very powerful. And a lot of our chocolate makers are very proud of that, because without those farmers, we wouldn't have chocolate. And it's kind of a fascinating thing to think about it, because when I first started making chocolate in 2009, I didn't really have a good handle that chocolate was a fruit, and that it had about 300 to 500 compounds in it. It's healthier as a roasted product than blueberries, than green tea, than acai, than most of the things that we think are healthy and are healthy today. And so in 2009, when I started learning about that, I was like, what happened? And so, there's a few books out there, The History of Chocolate, or The True History of Chocolate. And you can read it. They're very interesting books, because it goes back to, the Aztecs and the Mayans, and talks about how they used cacao beans as currency. If you had back in the day, if you were growing wonderful cacao and fermenting it and processing it correctly, you were highly sought after in different kingdoms and by kings. And when Europeans came over, especially the Spanish in 15 and 1600s, and they started seeing what this thing was and how valuable it was to different indigenous tribes. It is really fascinating to see how they utilized that and sort of took that and ran with it, as we know what the other side of those atrocities are. But from that point, and you look at the history and you kind of watch it go up until about 1930 to 1940, chocolate and chocolate drink around the world was still a health food. It was given to people who were sick. It was given to people who needed a attitude adjustment. It was given to people and children to make them feel better. And not until about the 1950s did it start to become candy, especially in America, or something of a luxury item that they then transitioned into bonbons and truffles, and started adding a lot of different things to, making it taste delicious, but it was losing its health food component. And it was losing its like core function that had been a part of the natural world for thousands of years, as something that made people feel good. So when I got into bean to bar chocolate making, I actually moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, to go to NC State to become a superintendent of golf courses or a land manager. And I got a job at Escazú in 2009, and my job was to sort and roast the beans. And I put my hands in that bag of beans and I was like, I want to do this forever. This is amazing. And long story short, I worked there for about 11 or 12 months. And one day my dad came down to visit me, and he was, chatting me up about something. And he looked at me and he said, if you were going to start a business, who are the first 5 people you would hire? And from that point on, I've been a business owner. I pitched a business in April of 2011 with my ex-wife. We got funding, and we opened Videri on December 15th of 2011. And it has been a very interesting and wild ride. But the core business principles that we have always instilled in ourselves and in our customers and in our coworkers and team is that we're a welcoming, friendly, delicious chocolate factory. The way we make chocolate is we get beans from Central and South America. Right now, our main sources are the Dominican Republic, Guatemala, and Ecuador. We get the beans in, we hand sort every bag of beans. Recently, we got a really neat piece of equipment that vibrates the beans and gets the little broken bits out, and it goes across on a little conveyor belt. And we literally touch every bean. We get out little rocks and sticks and twigs and maybe little pieces of burlap or something like that. And we're trying to keep the most plump, ripe beans so that when we roast and winnow and grind them, we don't have to add excessive amounts of sugar or cover them up with soy lecithin or add fillers or anything like that. Our goal is to make a chocolate bar and bonbons and drinking chocolates that are as close as to that fruit flavor that we get in that raw bag of beans as we can. I have a question about the place of conching in making chocolate. I'm getting there. I'll talk about it. So the way that we start is we get the bag of beans, we sort it, and then we take it over to our roaster. And that is where we get to impart our flavor profile in our chocolate. When you get a bag of beans in, it is what it is. You can't change it really until you start roasting it. Right now, we're roasting in our 23-kilo roaster. It takes about 3 roasts per bag to roast a bag of beans. And the different varieties have a little bit of a variation of preset temperature. Kind of think about when you're making different kinds of breads or cakes in your oven. Some of them need to be set at 350 and baked for 25 minutes. Some of them need to be set at 375 and baked for 25 minutes. So that's kind of the thought process on it. Without me having smell-o-vision, I can't really explain further how that could happen. Um, and so once we roast our beans, then we winnow them, which is the process of separating the shells, which is called the husk, from the nib, which is the cocoa bean. And it goes through essentially like a tooth wheel cracker, and there's some forced air that blows the husk away, which is the lighter than the nibs. And then we get a bucket of nibs, which if we have a 70-kilo bag of beans, which is about 160 pounds, we get about 40 to 45 kilos of nibs that we then put into our stone grinder. And we essentially just grind and refine them down for one day. And that process turns it into what's called liquor, which that material smells very acidic. It's very bright. It's very fruity. We weigh it out into certain increments. We put it and we set it up, and we let it sit for a week to 3 weeks to kind of let it continue the aging process, similar to wine. And then, depending on what kind of chocolate we need to make, whether it be single origin, which is nibs from one farm and one country, like our 75% Dominican Republic, which I'm going to eat some of now. I had to take this from work, so I didn't want to take the box. We put 75% of the total recipe. Let's say it's 100 kilos. You would put 75 kilos of nibs in that grinder, and then 25 kilos of sugar. So that's where you get the 75% Dominican, and 25% of that is sugar. And if we process that, it would take about 6 or 7 days to go from a bean all the way to finished chocolate that we could eat. And in that process, somebody asked the question of explaining the place of conching. What that does is we're slowly and at a lower temperature refining by using a stone base with stone wheels, and that base, that drum, spins around and it mixes the cocoa nibs and the sugar. And there's two parts that are happening. The material is actually passing underneath the wheels, and it's refining down to a small particle size, which gives you a nice mouthfeel and texture. But what it's also doing is aerifying it or conching it, where it's allowing some of the volatiles or some of the more sharper flavors to kind of have time to come off. That's one process in our factory. The other process is going back to that liquor product, where we then put that into a horizontal conch, which, if you think of a big drum, there's a series of metal blades on the inside of that drum, and we add our liquor mixture, cocoa butter, and sugar, and that's where we make our 70% chocolate. And then in our milk chocolate machine, we add milk powder. So in our 70% chocolate, that mixture goes in the afternoon, and it comes off in about 18 hours later in the morning, and that's 70% chocolate. And so that's the way that we get to a finished batch of chocolate. And I have a question over here. It says small batches like boutique wines, different flavored infused chocolate bars. That is true. The question is, based upon different bean shipments, you may get different flavors or different profiles in your cocoa beans. That's absolutely true. If there's 16 bags and a ton of beans, 12 of them are going to taste pretty similar, and 4 of them are going to taste different. Sometimes that difference is better, and sometimes that difference is not as great. And it could be anything from a little bit of water getting in to the beans as they're being shipped, or it could go into a warehouse somewhere where the warehouse maybe leaves it outside on the dock and it starts to rain, and then that bean starts to re-ferment, which is death to beans. And it's pretty fascinating to see the variance in the different types of cocoa beans that we get in the same lot, essentially. So then once we have that chocolate product, we then take it into our tempering room, which, when everybody can come back into Vidaria, you can see everything that we're doing. We put it into our tempering machines to either make chocolate bars, croissant sticks for bakeries, or we make bonbons and truffles with our 70% chocolate. And the tempering process is a very scientific, chemistry-driven process. But a basic principle is you get chocolate up to a certain temperature, about 120 degrees Fahrenheit, and you slowly and methodically lower it to your working temperature, which is about 88 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And what that temperature does is it gives chocolate a nice shine and snap. And it also helps with mouthfeel. If you ever get one of our chocolate bars and it has a little bit of graying on it, that chocolate bar somewhere along the process got too cold. And cocoa butter is essentially separating from that chocolate bar. The good news is you can put it in a microwave in a little cup or bowl, and you can hit 10 seconds, take it out, stir it, 10 seconds, stir it, and then you can enjoy it and it will taste perfectly delicious. If you ever get one of our chocolate bars and there's a little bit of like browning or something that looks maybe like crumbly, that means that chocolate bar got too hot and then it solidified again, like it essentially melted and then it came back. The same principle applies. You can put it in a little bowl, stir it up, put it in the microwave, do it again, and you can dip pretzels or nuts or strawberries or whatever you want in it. We have a question here. Do we make dairy-free chocolate? Yes. We have a whole line of vegan chocolate bars. In our chocolate range that we've been making since the beginning, the sea salt chocolate bar and the 70% classic dark are made with the same chocolate base, and they're both vegan and dairy-free, and they're made and processed on completely different machinery than our 55% dark milk chocolate bar. And most of our confections utilize delicious heavy cream, but we do make a few really delicious, I would call them almost sneaky vegan treats, because you can't really tell that they're not made without heavy cream or dairy. I have another question here that says, what are your comments on acidified, non or less fermented products? The best way to answer that question is a cocoa bean that shows up in our factory has been fermented. To my knowledge and opinion, there's no such thing as raw cacao unless you're sitting on a farm or a cocoa growing region that you literally cut a pod off of a tree, you opened it up, and you ate raw cacao. Once you ferment cocoa beans, they get above 140 degrees Fahrenheit, therefore killing the raw version of something. That being said, the chemical changes that are going on in a cocoa bean when they go through the fermentation process, the aerobic and anaerobic process of fermentation, they actually create a product that is easier for our bodies to digest. So it's kind of one of those things where I think raw food is delicious. Whenever I get a cold or something like that, I try and eat less processed food. And it makes me feel better. But raw cacao, that's the best way to put it. So I kind of circle back. If you were to start with a bag of beans on Monday at Videri, and you were to sort it and roast it and winnow it and grind it and refine it and then turn it into a bar or a bonbon, it would take about 7 days. Now, all of the things that we do in our factory, they roll over themselves. So, you know, it's not like every Monday we open beans and Tuesday we roast. It's more production wise, we're chopping it up at all times. You know, we run our grinder 4 to 6 days a week. We run our conches 4 days a week. We're tempering bars 5 to 6 days a week. So it really, we're doing it all the time. A question about where do we get the name for Videri? It comes from North Carolina state motto, Esse quam videri, which means to be rather than to seem. And then the word Videri is where the word video comes from. It is loosely translated from Latin into be seen or to be viewed upon. So when we were opening Videri, we wanted people to come in and see everything we were doing. And it was also a really nice tie-in to the state of North Carolina, where, you know, we called it our home and started the business. So it's been wonderful, and it always grounds us to the state of North Carolina. It always grounds us in making things that we can talk about and that we don't have to hide from. We're really big in talking about chocolate making and connecting to people about what we're trying to talk about. Um, so the next thing I'll transition into is our community engagement. And one of our brightest moments over this past year has been adopting the practice of rounding up for charities. When we went over to Weaver Street this past year and we saw that they were rounding up for a place at the table, we thought it was a wonderful idea, and we started doing it at our soft serve ice cream window that we opened up in July. And we've raised over $7,500 with donations and matching from us to different organizations such as the ACLU, the Book Harvest in Durham, the Hope Center at Poland, and now No Kid Hungry. And during this really difficult time where we've unfortunately had to cut staffing and pull back on some of our ambition and try and figure out ways to keep business going, it's been a really wonderful thing for us to engage with customers and with our community and be able to help in any way that we possibly can. And it makes everything that we do a lot easier when we can do something that makes us feel good. We love eating chocolate. I mean, I've been eating chocolate all night getting ready for this event, so that isn't hard for us to do. But during the past year specifically, it's been really wonderful for us to have another motivator to talk about causes that we love, causes that we believe in. And as a business, I think going back to the bathroom bill, I forget what tragic year that was that came out. That was our first foray into really standing up in front of and for causes that we believed in our community. And you know, we have really good role models in our community that also do this kind of work and stand up for things that they believe in and charities that they raise money for. But as a whole, without our community and without people that we believe in, we wouldn't be here. So it's hard for us to think of I would say another way. I don't see any point in Baderi's history, past or in the future, that would be a place that doesn't support community activation or community organizations, or even, you know, the Hope Center at Poland is a great organization that we have just come into contact with that helps kids in the foster program move into their own apartment after they're 18 years old. And it's pretty amazing to think about that we were a little part of maybe one or two kids getting out of the foster program and getting their own apartment because we're selling soft serve ice cream with house-made chocolate fudge. So that's been really important for us, and again, it just is really hard to think about all the people that are losing jobs or losing their homes or are going hungry right now while we're making a $7 chocolate bar. So we're trying to figure out different and creative ways to be a part of that that community while staying 6 feet apart from each other. So that's been a big part of who we are and what we do and why we do it. And yeah, it's been really, really awesome for us to be a part of that. I have another question here. What local retailers sell our bars? Weaver Street Markets, all of them. Whole Foods, Fresh Market, local places like Deco have always sold our products. We love Pam and her team over there. We sell bars in Durham and Chapel Hill and Cary and Apex. We have lots of different retailers all across the state and in South Carolina and Virginia. And we have a lot of really great partners that have been with us since 2011. Oh, somebody from Greensboro, so they haven't seen him in Fresh Market there. We must have to get a re-up then. That's the way that goes. We also sell a lot of products to breweries and bakeries. Right now, Ox Kitchen, the Ashley Christensen restaurant group, is buying a lot of chocolate and putting in a lot of their desserts. Union Special Bakery. If you buy their chocolate chip cookie, that is made with Videri chocolate. They also buy a lot of croissant sticks for their chocolate croissants. Layered Croissant, a new bakery that opened maybe 2 years ago now, uses our chocolate croissants. And there's a whole host of others that use our products that we're just really excited and grateful for, because we get to then go somewhere else and eat other people's products that are made with our stuff, and it's really fun. So it's been really fun to see that, and we sell a lot of chocolate to coffee shops as well. Jubala Village uses our 70% dark chocolate in their mochas, which has been really fun to enjoy that. And then also Black and White Coffee Roasters, who operates a cafe inside of our factory. They use our chocolate in all of their mochas, and that's been really fun because they're experts at roasting coffee beans and getting to source and then training people on it, which has been really fun. But yeah, so let's see, we're at 35 minutes. I don't want to keep people too long. And then I have to get a drink of this Woodford Reserve. So if anybody has any more questions, I'll answer more of them. Let's see. Stacy, what do you think?
We've got quite a few questions for you. So the first one is, we're from San Francisco Bay Area and used to go to the Ghirardelli Chocolate Factory. Can you address how different you are from them? Do you use the same kind of beans? And they say that they're from Greensboro, and they just ordered your sea salt chocolate bars and dark chocolate bars, and they were amazing. They're sold on you.
Oh, wonderful. Let's see. The first difference with Ghirardelli and us, Ghirardelli buys container ships worth of cocoa beans. They process their cocoa beans in a completely different way, shape, and form. And their goal is to sell chocolate at every single retail location in America, gas stations, Targets, everything like that. And their aim is to sell products. I don't know when the last time I had a bar of Ghirardelli chocolate is, or a Ghirardelli treat, or a caramel square or something like that. But the main difference is I don't think that a human being touches a cocoa bean in one of their factories ever. That isn't to say that it's bad or good. It's just is way different. Where they're processing about 4,000 or 5,000 tons of beans a year, we're processing about 17 tons of beans a year. So that's a little bit different. I see another question here about selling baking chocolate. We do. Yeah, you can go to our website and you can buy our baking chocolate on the website. It's our 70% classic dark. There's about 3 or 4 different recipes there. And then we've just started selling fondue, which is really fun. You can also buy on the website there. Oh, well, thanks, Bill Allen. I appreciate that. I feel like I did a good job. Stacy, do you have any more questions for me? What did I miss any?
We do, yeah. So the next one is, where exactly in Ecuador do you get the beans from?
Good question. We used to get them from a source in southern Ecuador near Guayaquil. Now we get them from a source in northern Ecuador in the coastal town of Costa Esmeraldas. And weird, funny story. When I was 19 years old, I traveled through Ecuador and went surfing in this very remote village in the north of Ecuador, and the surf spot is called Mompiche. And this cocoa farm that we get beans from now is very close to there. And we get them from a really neat source. They're very high quality. They make our 90% Ecuador, which is just 90% cocoa nibs and 10% sugar. And we've been in partnership with them for maybe 3 years now. And we hope to continue using their beans for a long time. One of the questions here is, do you do tours? Unfortunately, right now we do not do tours. It was a really wonderful part of our factory previously, before COVID, where you could come around and do a self-guided tour. We had a lot of signage, and information that we shared with everybody, and then people could come up and ask us questions and then get samples. So we're hoping that vaccination rollout and people wearing masks and being safe will help us get back to that sooner than later. So that would be really fun. Stacy, any
We're ready for it too, to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this kind of plays on to what you were saying. So questions about, can you order online for pickup or delivery?
You can do both. We ship 2-day FedEx, or you can order for pickup in store. With the upcoming Valentine's holiday, we have a shipping deadline of February 10th, but a pickup deadline of February 14th. We are all, well, maybe with the exception of 2 people, we're all procrastinators in our factory. So we'll be open until 6 p.m. on Valentine's. And on Saturday, we'll have bouquets of flower from Wild Flower Company. And we're open Tuesday through Saturday, 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. with soft serve ice cream in our window, and you can buy chocolate from us. And our retail nook at our little front area there is open Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 12 to 6, and Sundays from 12 to 6 for the soft serve window. So we'd love to see you come by and, wear your mask and enjoy some treats. Yeah, and we'd love to see you. Any other questions, Stacy?
We have a couple more. Barbara says, I heard chocolate might be a diminishing crop. Is that a possibility?
I think with everything involving global warming and climate change, cocoa is in jeopardy of losing its stand in the world. The story that came out 3 or 4 years ago that there was going to be a cocoa shortage was a silly ploy by some big chocolate manufacturers to try and get the price of their cheap bars to go up. So our cocoa beans are not in short supply. We have enough of them, and the partnerships that we've had have been really wonderful and good at navigating this pandemic. So we're still good with chocolate and cocoa beans. We're good.
We're glad to hear that.
Good.
Last question. Would you share your answer to your dad's question? Who are the first 5 people you needed to hire to start your new business?
Oh, yes, that's a good one. The first one would have been my mom. She worked at Toyota, and she just recently retired after 26 years of working at Toyota. And I've always tried to convince my mom to move to North Carolina and work with us so she could help us become a lean, on-time delivery system for making chocolate. That was the first person. And then my little brother, Mark, who I now work with at Rotar Chocolate Machines, is a company that we started together making the actual grinder that makes chocolate. And then the other 3 people were a great salesperson, an all-star production person, and then a back of the house person. And now at our company today, we have that in Carrie Blackburn, Crystal G, and Emmy Fisher. And we're surrounded by a team of wonderful human beings that are doing really amazing work. And so, yeah, it's been wild because I think I got to 2 people, maybe 3, when my dad asked me that question back in 2010. And it's really fascinating to think that was the catalyst that spurred me on to opening a chocolate factory.
That's awesome. Sam, thank you so much for such a wonderful program and inviting us into the deeper history of the dairy. And I think I can speak for all of us when I say we are so ready to be able to come back and take tours.
Yes, that would be so much fun. We would love that so much. And we're working on really fun ways to incorporate people back into the factory once we feel comfortable and safe. And like I said, vaccines are more readily distributed. And we just can't wait to talk to people about chocolate and ask them where they're eating and what they've been doing and what they've been doing outside. And we just really miss that interaction with the people that that come into our factory. So It's been wonderful to be a part of it for 9+ years, and we can't wait to get back to normal.
Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. We hope that you enjoyed the program. If you did enjoy it, we invite you to come and join us at our next History and Highballs on Thursday, February 25th at 7 p.m. with Oysters Carolina owner Ryan Bethea. We hope that you all have a wonderful evening. Stay safe and be well. Take care, everyone.
Thanks.